Hi there, Karen Flaherty from Living by Human Design. Hope you're doing well. This week in the Human Design Weather, we're going to be talking about the gate 45, which is typically called the gate of the king or the queen. And so we all get to feel a little royal this week. Okay, so the sun in gate 45 starts on June 7th and it goes until around June 13th, midday. And we've got the earth in the gate 26, which is called integrity. So it's interesting because the 45 does come off the throat. It's definitely a throat energy and lends itself to being to the kind of people who walk into the room and you just notice them, right? And you are a little more respectful of them, and it's just a nice energy to have if you're in any kind of a position of leadership. And a lot of these people with the gate 45, especially if it's higher up in their chart, especially in the sun or the earth, do tend to be leaders. The gate 26 is in down here, coming off the will center, and it's the gate of integrity. What's nice is that the king or the queen will have integrity, right? Or at least the possibility of integrity. Now, sometimes the king or the queen can be a little maleficent. Is that the word? As opposed to a good king or queen. They're the bad king or queen, and their integrity actually might be on the manipulative side, because that's the other side of integrity. So it can go both ways, but these energies can be very potent in terms of both leadership and integrity. So we start the week with no centers defined. And then by June 12th, the channel 31.7 gets defined. That's the one from the throat down to the G center. And it is all about, it's the channel of the alpha. And it continues only for 2 days, because then Venus and Mars are short-lived in terms of the gates. And 31 was already in line 6, and the gate 7 just moved into Mars in line 1, and so it's only going to last a day or two, and then we'll move on to the next. So with the sun in gate 45, as I said, it's called the king or the queen. It's also in quantum human design, it's called dispensation, because it's about it can be gathering together, or the king and the queen in the original I Ching. It's the natural and generally beneficial attraction of like forces. So it's called gathering together because usually the leader is bringing together the forces that can help everybody. And that's why it's also called gathering together. Incarnation crosses this week. It's the cross of rulership, of course, because literally it is about being a leader. It's possession and confrontation. And in quantum human design, it is called dispensation. The gate 26 is integrity. Now, the integrity can go both ways, right? It's the pride is on the shadow side, artfulness is the gift, and invisibility is the CD. But it's also the taming power of the great, or the egoist in the original I Ching, because it does come off the will center. So it does, especially if you have a defined will center, it can be quite egotistical. But it's having integrity and being able to use that integrity in a way to educate people so that they'll buy whatever it is you're selling. So it is part of the business circuit and part of the entire channel of the salesperson. So it's the maximization of the power of memory applied to the nurturing of continuity. And that sounds a little weird, but it's if you've ever been in sales, or if you know somebody who's in sales, they have to remember a lot of stuff when it comes to explaining their product and or service. And so it's just interesting the way the I Ching, as old as it is, thousands and thousands of years old, talks about the maximization of the power of memory applied to the nurturing of continuity. So it's there. You're basically using the knowledge you have. Let's say as a salesperson, you're using the knowledge you have about the product or service that you're wanting to educate this person about, who's in front of you, or group of people who's in front of you, and applying it to the nurturing of continuity. In other words, continuing the species, right? Continuing the sales of these goods and services. So it's pretty interesting. But the business circuit really does play a lot with regard to keeping things it's tribal energy, right? So it's keeping things the way they are and allowing them to continue the way they are. Now, on the other hand, as we'll talk about in a second with the gene key, that's not always best thing for everybody. So we talked about the gene keys, and in quantum human design, it's called integrity. So the gene key 45 has the shadow here is dominance, the gift is synergy, and the CD is communion. And so in the graphic, he says the 45th gift knows that any group has its own self-organizing principles. And that's coming to be slowly but surely. And once we start to realize that there are self-organizing principles within any group of people, and that whether it's a corporation or a community group or a school or a political group or economic group, whatever it is, they have their own self-organizing principle. And if we just allow that to happen, and allow it to serve everybody within the institution, things would be a lot better. And so what Richard Rudd calls this is going from hierarchy to heterarchy. In other words, where things are much more heterogeneous as opposed to hierarchical, right? Where everybody gets to play a part. Maybe everybody gets to be a leader at different times, or the leader is somebody who is so supportive of everyone else that it doesn't make it seem like they're better than anyone in the group. And so this is where we can have that synergy. That's what he's talking about in the synergy. The synergy is where everybody plays a role. Everybody has a skill set. Everybody plays by the rules that allow them to make the most of those skills and talents that they have. But there's a leader who's very supportive of everybody. And then the CD is communion, where really we're just all working together. So ultimately, any system that has been built on a foundation of fear will, by its very nature, crumble. And that's what the hierarchy basically has been built on, right? Any hierarchy, whether it's corporate or government or education, anything like that. If it's based on fear, it's going to crumble eventually. And so just knowing that allows us to have the potential for other possibilities. He also says it's the fractal energy of goodwill that has the real power, not profitability itself. And what he means by this is that the goodwill that's established when everybody plays a role is the real power, and that can spread out, and just like fractals can spread out, and that the profitability won't matter as much. It'll be there, the profitability will be there, but it's not the only goal, basically. That you can have other goals. Two things can be true at the same time, right? You can be profitable and be supportive of everyone and make sure that everyone is getting the training and the support and the guidance that they need to move on and to feel good about what they're doing and move on to a new role. So it's a pretty interesting concept. It's a pretty interesting way to be. And I think I have been noticing it more and more in corporations and other types of organizations where this self-organizing principle can be the goal, and it can be accomplished. So with the sun in the gate 45, you can imagine we've got a few people who are who take on the mantle of royalty quite easily. And can be leaders, right? So somebody like George H.W. Bush was, the president, and his wife Barbara actually also had the Gate 45. So they were basically the king and the queen for a while in a democratic society. Michael J. Fox, F. Lee Bailey, Kanye West, Johnny Depp, who has, shown up as somebody who despite being in a difficult position, seems to have come out the at least titular winner of the court case last year. Jacques Cousteau, who was famous for diving beneath the sea. Frank Lloyd Wright, the wonderful architect, Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, Judy Garland, Malcolm McDowell, a number of people, and Anne Frank, a number of people who are either on stage or gain credibility through their craft. So I hope you have a wonderful week. Watch for the kings and the queens to emerge this week and see what roles they take on and how egotistical or not they might be, and see how that works for you and for the people around you. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and hope you're enjoying the start of summer wherever you are. And I'll talk to you soon. Be well.